From the earliest days of NHRA drag racing in Southern California, the legend of Pomona has never dimmed. Over the last 40 years, the Fairplex drag strip has grown along with the sport. Until this year, however, the facility had remained functionally unchanged since the 1970s. This year, that has changed. In a unique agreement between the Fair Board and the NHRA, permanent structures are now allowed, and the Pomona track has been fully transformed into a racer's paradise, combining one of the quickest and fastest racing services in the nation with fan and sponsor amenities that will keep the legend of Pomona alive into the next century. Join us today as we close out another year of Winston Championship Drag Racing at the place where it began, Pomona. Today, American Sports Cavalcade presents coverage of the season-ending 29th annual Winston Finals from Pomona Raceway at the LA County Fairplex. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pomona. I'm Steve Evans. Let me tell you a story about a man named Corey McClanathan. 1 year ago, he won this Winston Finals event and missed the overall Winston Championship by, about that much. And he did it all on the family wallet, no corporate sponsorship. Well, that well has run dry. And after this event today, the merry band must break up. Well, they want to leave on a high note. And man, they made a big move in that direction earlier today in round number 1, racing Clayton Harris, low elapsed time, and top speed for the Mac Attack. You sure you want to park this car 478 300 round 1?
No. After that, are you kidding? I wish I could run forever, but I mean, unfortunately, when sponsor is lacking and we've all got to, keep on racing, I've got to find a ride. Jimmy's got to find a car to tune. I'll be happy with the McDonald's crew next year. Jimmy will be happy with Joe Amato, but we'll both be racing. But I'll tell you, if we ever get a sponsor, we'll be back together and we'll come out and knock them dead again.
Here at the end of the 93 season, crew chiefs like Jimmy Prock are making more news than the drivers, even in the funny car category. Here's Brock Yates.
Well, Steve, you talk about high stakes. Right here in the Chuck Etchells pit, we've got some interesting things going on. This is Tim Richards, of course, who helped Chuck this year to such a tremendous season, in addition to running in the first 4-second pass ever in funny cars. But Tim is moving on, Chuck, but you've got an excellent replacement on hand, I understand.
Yeah, we're really excited. John Medlin's coming on board, and we're real happy for Tim and Kim getting a great opportunity over there with Palettas. And we're confident John is a very innovative, creative person, and I don't think we're going to skip a beat.
So John Medlin, last with Don Perdome, is coming in here to run funny cars, and of course he's got a lot of experience with him. But right now, the pressure is on you in a little bit because you got second place in the Winston Championship standings coming like right at you if you can buy Jim Epler in the next round.
Well, I've got a lot of confidence in Tim Richards, and I think that he's going to put the tune-up in the car. We need to do it, and if the driver doesn't choke, we might be okay.
The driver won't choke, I'm sure of that. Best of luck, Chuck.
Thank you.
All right, for more on Pro Stock, let's go to my pal, Bob Fry.
Brock, the Pro Stock class this year really has been dominated by the two Oldsmobiles of Warren and Kurt Johnson, but the one car they've had to look out for every race, the Dodge of Scott Jeffrey on. Scott, I got to ask you, are you going to be glad to get this season over with?
Well, we still have a little bit of unattended business the rest of this day, but yeah, I definitely look forward to getting the season over with and starting fresh next year. And these guys from Wayne County, we're starting to work on some consistency factors for next year, and hopefully we'll continue to do that here today.
You guys have had some real highlights this season. I guess that's what you'll take with you most out of the 93 year.
Yeah, I mean, it was great to get that one elusive win underneath my belt, and we had a few close final rounds as well, and we look forward to next season.
Scott Jeffrey wants to take care of that unfinished business. He'll have to beat both of the Johnsons and move to the winner's circle here today. Let's pick up action now in the second round of Top Fuel. Steve?
Thank you, Bob. Our first pair will feature Shelly Anderson, who won her first national event this year in the fall at Maple Grove in Reading, Pennsylvania, up against Kenny Bernstein. And Kenny Bernstein has had a problem beating blondes his entire Top Fuel career. First it was Lori John, now Shelly Anderson. They always seem to have his number. Something goes wrong when he races a blonde lady.
Well, more than that, she's got lane choice. So he and Dale Armstrong, hard to imagine they're underdogs, but they're going to have to really step up. They're going to get by the lady from California. Of course, her dad, Brad, has really got this race car really tweaked up. This is a very, very formidable young lady behind the wheel.
And I tell you, this is about as good as Kenny Bernstein has looked all year. Well, actually, since Englishtown, New Jersey, the very early part of the season. In round one earlier, it was Shelley at a 485 to Bernstein's 488. That's how she earned lane choice. And in round one earlier, it was a fiery rematch of Kenny Bernstein and Joe Amato. Who could forget the Winter Nationals this year? Bernstein, engine blows over the wall on fire. Joe Amato won the Winter Nationals. But that was only one of 2 races in this entire season, which is a terrible year for Joe Amato. Here was that race earlier today. Now watch the 2 cars. I think you'll see which driver leads first. Obviously, Bernstein. Amato tried to catch him, couldn't do it. Bernstein wins by 100. Joe, the season started out pretty well in '93 and then just kind of flattened out.
Yeah, we won here the first race of the year, and we lost first round the last race, and we ended up 5 or 6 in the points. So it hasn't been one of them dream seasons, but that's how racing is. When you have the lows, the highs are more rewarding, and we're looking real exciting toward next year with Jimmy Prock as my new crew chief, and we're hopefully going to come back strong.
You know, Steve, it says something about crew chiefs. He lost Tim Richards. Tim Richards goes over to the Chuck Etchells team, puts him up to 2nd place possibly in the funny car standing while Joe takes a dive. Nobody can emphasize how important crew chiefs are to this sport.
And there's one of the better ones. Brad Anderson directing his daughter into the staging bench against Kenny Bernstein. Everyone watching this one closely. Bernstein drills her off the starting line. And at the far end with an engine-burning 481 to a losing 497. Bob Fry is back at the starting line with the winning crew chief in this heat, Dale Armstrong. Bob?
Boy, the way this car is performing, I'll bet you guys wish that the season had 4 more races to go.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's been going down there. It's got a few little bugaboos in it, but we're working hard on getting them out of there. Hope we can do it a couple more times.
The rest of the Top Fuel field hopes they can't do it a couple of more times.
No question, Bob, they are hooked up right now. As we go back to the pits, this is the John Force crew working on his engine. We're going to see him coming up against Dale Foley in funny car round 2. Right after this, from the Winston Finals. Stick with us. That is Mike Dunn on board the Darrell Gwynn Top Fuel car doing his burnout as we continue with more round 2 action here at Pomona. He is going to face Corey McClenathan. Remember, Corey wants to go out a winner here, the final time in that race car. But right now, let's get on to Steve with Kenny Bernstein.
Kenny, the fuse on this motor is 1,319 feet long.
Yeah, I drove it a little too deep, I think. I really did. When I went past there, I said, you may be a little too much, and then it went boom.
But a 481 is a nice result.
Oh, yeah, that's great. We'll take those any time. Believe me, that's great. The guys are doing good. But you're right. She's a short fuse right now.
By the way, you finally beat a blonde.
You believe that? Finally beat a woman in this game, huh? They've been beating us for, what, 5 years?
Here on the injector, you can see the throttle is wide open there. That could have been a real exciting ride.
And an expensive one as well. So they got some work to do back in the Bernstein pit. As we get ready to go down here, that is Corey McClenathan. You see that number 2 on here, almost the number 1 last year, Steve.
That's right. Had he simply shown up at the Montreal race in Canada, he would have beaten Joe Amato for the World Championship. But he's not looking back at that. He's looking forward to 1994. He'll replace Ed McCullough in the McDonald's car. And there is Mike Dunn, who's coming in here on a high. He and Darrell Gwynn won the last race on the circuit in Dallas, Texas, the Chief Nationals. Corey McClenathan, what can we say that we haven't already said? He's got low elapsed time. He's at top speed. He's got all the aces in the final appearance here at Pomona in the family hot rod. Jimmy Prock, crew chief, runs away. You saw the radio there. They can communicate back and forth if they need to. Let's listen and watch. Whoa! McClenathan is on a roll. A 4.81 second elapsed time at 301.50 miles an hour. That's top speed. Let's go to Bob.
Jimmy, the way this car's running, you're obviously not looking ahead to your next employer, are you?
No, I want to do really good for the McClenathan family. They've been great to me. Want to go out on a good note. Just trying to keep it consistent.
A bunch of 300s for Corey Mack.
I guess. As we get another look at this race, so you can see McClenathan on the far lane. He just is a wink late. Mike Dunn beats him off the line. but it's big power from Jimmy Prock and the great clutch setup that works for McLenathan all the way down the racetrack. The car is hooked up perfectly for yet another 300-mile-an-hour pass. Okay, Corey's out of the car. Steve's with him at the far end.
Corey says, what a ride, and it's a good thing it ran 3:01. You had to play catch-up just a little bit.
Yeah, I kind of figured that. In the middle of the track, she was hurting a little bit. We warmed her up back in the pits back there. She had a bad hole, and boys had to rip her apart and put a new head on her. We're lucky we got up here to do what we did.
You're going to love a 481 then.
481? That's perfect. I hope I can do that all day long.
Well, based on what he's been doing so far, Steve, he may very well do it. He's unbelievably consistent, and I'll tell you what, Joe Amato's got to be smiling somewhere back in the pit zone. He's going to get that magic fingers of Jimmy Prock next year.
Oh, you can bet on that, and Prock didn't come cheap, I'm told. All right, it's Rance McDaniel versus Pat Austin. Pat Austin out of Tacoma, Washington. His big claim to fame this year, he won the U.S. Nationals and about $80,000. And earlier today, it was Pat Austin up against Eddie Hill, the new 1993 Winston Top Fuel champion. Now, Eddie has had a great year. He's won 5 races, but he really has been kind of cold since Indianapolis Labor Day weekend, protecting his points lead. And in round 1, he overestimated the racetrack. Got a little too aggressive. Eddie, I know you wanted to end the season in a blaze of glory, not blaze of tire smoke.
Yeah, we really did. That's a big surprise there. We thought we did just exactly what the car was asking for. We misinterpreted or something malfunctioned. Sorry about that. That really wasn't the way we wanted to end up. But
see you in 94.
We'll be back.
And Steve, he's going to be back with number 1 painted on the wing of his car, so it isn't all bad for Eddie Hill. And it's not all bad for this guy as well. Rance McDaniel has done very well here. Kind of a surprise so far at Pomona.
And in round number 1, he faced off with Ed McCullough in what for a lot of us was an emotional side-by-side confrontation, because we all knew this was Ed McCullough's last ride in the McDonald's Top Fuel dragster for Larry Minor Motorsports, as we said, to be replaced by Corey Mack. So you know the ace really had the bit in his mouth. And maybe too much horsepower. Out round 1, McCullough. Ed, I just want to take a moment to thank you for all the thrills you have given us the past couple of years in the McDonald's Top Fueler.
It's really been a pleasure for me to be a part of this team. I wish it could continue on, but it's not the case.
A man with your talent and experience will not be in the sidelines very long.
Well, we'll have to see what happens, Steve. I don't know where we're going from here.
We just wish you the best.
Thank you.
That tough exterior has a great big heart. All right, let's pick it up. Rance McDaniel versus Pat Austin. McDaniel, 2 final round appearances this year, yet to win a race. Pat Austin, just 1 victory, but the richest of them all at Indianapolis. It is McDaniel. McDaniel from behind at a 488 to a 490, 292 miles an hour to Pat Austin, faster, 293 miles an hour. Austin, predictably, Brock, got him on the starting line. There's few better.
Maybe the best in history, some people say, but right now it's not enough, as the man on the left side of your screen comes back just about here, mid-track, to just get Pat Austin in one of the closest Top Fuel drag races you're going to see in a long, long time. Look at this finish. Let's go to Steve with a winner.
Rance, tell us about that race you won by 1/1000th of a second. What happened?
That's as close as they come. That scared me to death. I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Did you have any idea you won?
No, I didn't. Not till I saw some people down here waving their hands. I saw him, and then I started to come by him.
A nice 488.
Thank you. Thank you. We're ready for him.
Boy, I guess Rance McDaniel, we're going to watch him for the rest of the day. That is Corey Mack. He's going to face the winner of the Coletta Jimmy Nix race coming up. All right ahead here from Pomona. Stick with us. We'll be right back.
Welcome back, everyone, to the NHRA Winston Finals here at the Fairplex in Pomona, California. I'm Steve Evans along with Brock Yates and Bob Fry, and you're looking at Jimmy Nix. In his mid-50s, Jimmy Nix comes to Pomona with 1 distinction. He was a low qualifier the last time we raced in Dallas, Texas, at a 480, and then red-lighted it away in round number 1. And he is up against the man who has qualified number 1 this year more than everybody else combined. and that is Scott Coletta. And who could forget crew chief Dick LaHaye tuning this car to the fastest speed in history just a month ago in Topeka, Brock, 3:08.
Well, this three-way Michigan team, Dick LaHaye, Dad Connie, and son Scott have really done a job. They qualified 5th here, beat Michael Brotherton in round number 1. Jimmy Nix, the old Sooner out of Oklahoma City, he got by Doug Herbert in round number 1. He qualified number 4. So these machines pretty much, Steve, as far as the numbers are concerned, are almost dead equal.
And Jimmy Nix, amazingly, is tuning this car himself, pulling an Eddie Hill. Great race. Look at Nix extended out. Nix at only 285 miles an hour still whips Coletta by a car length who ran 298. It was Nix's elapsed time at a 4.80 that proved the difference. That's the best of the round so far, to a 4.85 for the losing Coletta.
He also had him off the line. A little bit better reaction time by Jimmy Nix in the left lane here. A little smoke off the tires from Coletta, just hazing him slightly. That could cost him a little bit. And Jimmy Nix reaches out at the far end to take this round. So Scott Coletta out for the day, but believe me, this team is in shape for next year, and he will be a contender, guaranteed. Now, the final 4 goes this way. Jimmy Nix will face Corey McLenathan. Nix will have lane charts. That's going to be an interesting one with Corey running so well here. Kenny Bernstein versus the underdog, Rance McDaniel. McDaniel so far surprises a lot of people. Bernstein with lane charts. Let's go to Steve.
Jimmy Nix muttered, hard to believe. It's great to talk to an old friend, especially after you run 4.80 and have lane choice over Corey.
That's he'd be unbelievable. It'd be hard to beat him.
You know, you need to work maybe a little bit on leaving the starting lane. You don't race that much.
Not too good at it, am I? I think I'll let you drive, Steve.
Anytime, Jim.
Well, Jimmy Nix, as you say, tunes them and races them and does a super job at both, so we can't fault him in any way.
The last time Jimmy Nix got interviewed at a drag race, it was in black and white, I guarantee you. All right, here we go. Funny Cars, round number 2. Cruz Pedregon versus Gordon Mineo. Mineo backing into your picture. Mineo has had a good season because he hasn't got on fire much, at least in the last half of the season. Out of Rockwall, Texas, Lance Larson tuning the car, and it's running good. All right, now, Cruz Pedregon won 2 races this year, but for the defending Winston champion, that's a disappointing season. Out of Moore Park, California, Larry Minor racing over in the far lane, and he considers this his home track, and these are his hometown fans. So Cruz hoping to dress to impress here.
Well, who could forget last year when he came in here on a tear, having caught up John Force late in the season and went on to win the Winston Championship. So I'm sure Cruz has a lot at stake here. It's not been a particularly exciting season for him. As you say, 2 wins, but look at this. Gordon Mineo right in it all the way to the end, but it is Pedregon.
It is Pedregon at 5:12. That's a nice number on the board. 289 miles an hour. Mineo trailing at a 5:36, 219. Let's go to Bob.
Mike, 5:12, you inched up a little bit from last round. Is that what you were trying to do?
Yeah, we've been choosing the left lane here because it seems to be a little bit better at about 60 feet to 100 feet. But there's definitely a bump when it comes off the pad out there, and that time we got it hooked up and it ran a little bit better.
A little better next round?
Yeah, well, weather conditions look pretty good, so we ought to go a little quicker.
Well, I'll tell you what, if he carries 5:12s all day long, he's going to be in the winner's circle. Let's take another look at this race. Gordon Mineo gets him a little bit, just by a few thousandths off the line, but it's the big car, the McDonald's car with Pedregon on board in the far lane, that takes the victory. But believe me, at half track, it could have been Gordon Mineo all the way. But right here, you'll see the tire smoke, and that is what cost Gordon Mineo the victory. As Cruz Pedregon goes on to an easy win at a powerful 5:12.
Well, Cruz, the Thunder is back in the MAC, a 5:12. That's nice.
McDonald's car's definitely back. You know, Steve, we've had a long, hard season, and it's good to finish off like this because 94, we want the championship back.
These are conditions we don't see very often in Southern California.
It's really great. You know, it was deceiving all week. It's been hot and humid, and, you know, we didn't expect this, but, you know, there's a lot of cars that'll step up. I saw a lot of Mineo out there. He's tough, but we're in the semifinals.
On a cool, cloud-covered day.
And who knows, Steve, we may see even better times as conditions improve here at Pomona. And what better pair to have that shot than these two, Steve? These guys have set milestones in both sides of drag racing.
That's right. A month ago at the very same race, that car, Chuck Edgels, became the first funny car ever to dip below 5 seconds at a 498. And opposite him, his opponent here in this side-by-side affair will be the first driver to top 300 miles an hour in a funny car, that being Jim Epler. Chuck Edgels out of Putnam, Connecticut. He is trying to finish second in the points. Only Cruz Pendragon can stop him. Pendragon has to win the race and set low ET. Jim Epler, he's out here just trying to do a great job and end the season on a high note for Rush Doctor, his sponsor. There's Mike Clover, crew chief on the Epler car, 300-mile-an-hour Mike. These are two very good businessmen, as well as very good racers.
They are indeed, and they are going to give us a good show here because, as you said, who's to know? We could see absolutely a record-shattering low ET and a record-shattering top speed.
Absolutely. Great lead. Nice race. Sideways is Edgels, and Epler nips him on a bit of a hole shot. Not particularly spectacular numbers. A 5:33 for Epler, a 5:31 for Edgels. 289 miles an hour. Let's go to Bob Fright to start with Mike Klober.
Here's a car that runs 300 miles an hour, and you go 269 and win.
Well, we've oiled the racetrack several times in the right lane, and when I can't get a grip down at the other end, I'm in a real bad way. The motor gets very rich, and it won't run the big speed. But if we can get over this racetrack problem, we can run some speed, and we probably put a lot better ET up too.
They'll take 269 in a win light anytime.
Well, Bob and Steve, that was a very costly loss for Chuck Edgels. Had he gotten by Epler, he could have really clinched second place in the Winston Championship standings. But it was not to be. It was a close race. The two cars ran almost equal half track, and then it was just a little bit of a fall off in power on the part of Edgels on the right side of your screen. And it looked for a moment like Epler might go up in smoke, but he held on to win the race. And in fact, let's not forget that this is the only place Jim Epler has ever won a national event.
Nice driving. The hole shot did it.
Really, I thought I might need everything I could to get around Chuck. He is really on a roll this year, but boy, hats off to the crew. They've really done a heck of a job getting this thing back together for this round.
You watch Cruz put up that 12. You won't like a 5:33 much.
5:33, that's not good. Drop the cylinder again, about 800 feet, so we're going to have to work on her, I'm afraid.
More funny cars coming up from Pomona.
Welcome back to the NHRA Winston Finals from Pomona, California. On the left side of your screen, that is a 1993 Winston Funny Car champ, John Forrest. There's his crew chief, Austin Coyle. What a year. 11 wins, including 5 in a row. Unprecedented in a funny car, and shortly you'll be going for a ride with John. Now, John qualified at a 5:09. Must have been low, right? Nope, that only got him 4th. His opponent, Dale Pulley, qualified at a 5:09 too, and he's 5th. Jack Edgels set the qualifying pace at a 5:07. Now, Dale Pulley and the Paisano car, the late Joe Paisano, his brother Frankie now running the operation. Boy, they always run good, even on a limited schedule. One of the best ever, Dale Pulley. And he's up against John Forrest, who in round 1 only ran a 5:35. Well, here's why. Forrest had some big problems. See the fire right under the nose of the car? Well, Forrest alertly on the onboard fire extinguisher system and knocked the fire down pretty quickly. But he thrives on that kind of stuff anyway. But that necessitated an engine change, Brock.
And as you know, Steve, that always injects an element of uncertainty into the whole equation here because nobody has had a chance to check anything out. They rush those jobs and get that pulled it back into the race car. So Forrest comes to the line against a very, very tough man. Dale Pulley, a veteran, as you say, doesn't race that much. But boy, he is always tough.
And Forrest out first. Forrest at the finish line first. Whoa! Low elapsed time of the day at 5.11 seconds, 289 miles an hour. Pulley slowing to a 5:39. Bob Fry is with Austin Coyle.
I've seen a lot of cars over a lot of years, Austin. I can't remember one that's dominated the way you guys have this year.
Well, you couldn't have fooled me about that this morning. We had some terrible troubles on the first run, but we changed motors and put everything back to what we know, and it came right back. So here we go.
Another dominating John Forrest performance.
Bernie Federley and Larry Frazier get a lot of credit there, too. Now here is one of the real bright spots at funny car competition in 1993. A youngster, mid-20s, out of Ohio, the family car, Dean Scusa, and he can run 5 O's with anybody.
Well, he's going to have to because he faces one of the best in the business. That's Al Hoffman doing his burnouts there in the far lane. Hoffman will have lane choice, although Scusa qualified number 3. But first, let's go down to Steve with John Force.
This old hot rod was hauling, John. Best time of the day, 5:11.
Hey, well, we had an old dead motor in there since yesterday, I guess. And all of a sudden, I told Coyle on the burnout, I said, this thing sounds like an animal. He told me, so we're back. We're okay. She just hiked up the front end and smoked right down through there. She's bad.
You got lane choice over Epler.
We can use it.
There he is, waving at a few of his fans. Irrepressible. A little bit introverted, actually, Steve. Unfortunately, I wish he'd be a little bit more outgoing.
Yeah, when he comes out of his shell, he's going to be something. I tell you, this Dean Scusa car with Glenn Micros, the crew chief, leaning in is really something. They qualified number 3 ahead of Force and some of the other best cars in the sport at a 5:08, beat Gary Dencham in round number 1. Al Hoffman, he qualified with a real solid 5:10, and he dispatched pretty neatly back to Georgia in round number 1. If Scusa is up to the task here, Brock, this could be a pickup deal.
That's right. Scusa has been a real surprise, and it's really neat to see youngsters come along. If he can get a little sponsorship help next year, he's going to be a player.
You bet. Al Hoffman has already announced West Auto is his major sponsor for next year. Ooh, Scusa off the mark first. But Hoffman drives right by him. Nice hole shot by Scusa, but it wasn't enough to combat Hoffman's 5:13 at 280 miles an hour. 5:26 loses it for Scusa at a faster speed of 285.
So that sets up the final 4, which will work out like this. Hoffman against Pedregon. Those two guys know each other real well. Guaranteed that'll be a good one. And Jim Epler, ooh, he goes against John Force, the dubious honor. Force, of course, lane choice, running so well.
Tell you what, Al, get this thing to go straight, and it might run better than it did at 5:13.
Yeah, it's moving around a little bit on us out there. It was spinning the tire, but as long as we're in front, we're going to keep our foot on the deal. I'd like to thank BDS, New Orlando Dodge, and everybody here that's helped us all year. Mr. Gasket, Pennzoil, Deast, everyone. I'm going to forget a lot, but these guys have been great to us all year.
Back in the Bernstein pit, you're looking at a maybe $2,500 to $3,000 billet aluminum cylinder head going on his top fuel car. That's without the valves and bell springs. And he's going to face Rance McDaniel coming up in the semis.
Welcome back to Pomona, California, the NHRA Winston Finals. You've seen Top Fuel, you've seen Funny Car. Now it's time for the 3rd category of the pros, and this is Pro Stock. In the near lane, Scott Jeffrey on. In the far lane is Jerry Ekman, and they come in here, Brock, 6,000ths apart from first-round performance.
And also, Steve, trying to recoup what has been really a disappointing season for both of them. They're both excellent runners, terrific teams, very powerful and good cars. But really, I'm sure if you talk to Jerry and Scott both privately, they tell you that they had come to Pomona at the beginning of the year expecting a whole lot more than this season gave them.
That's right. For Scott Jeffrey, though it has been a breakthrough year, he won his first national event in Memphis, Tennessee. And for Jerry Ekman with the beautiful new Trans Am Pontiac, it has truly been a disappointing season. Ekman is not finishing high up in the points, even challenged for the World Championship just a couple of years ago. Boy, is that a pretty car.
That's a brand new one. That's the newest of the new Pontiac Trans Am. Very aerodynamic, and that car should work because it is so slippery, especially against the older model Dodge Daytona that Jeffreyon's driving.
Jeffreyon car is a short wheelbase, difficult to drive. We've said that many times, and it still bears emphasizing. You're on board with Jeffreyon, and you were 300s late. Jerry Ekman, a bit of an advantage. Whoa, the powerful Dodge almost sideways on the racetrack, pulls it out. 715 to a 720, 193 miles an hour for Scott Jeffreyon, 190 for Jerry Ekman. Let's have another look at this one and watch the Dodge. I mean, it is all over the place in the near lane, Brock.
Well, there has been a few oil downs here at Pomona that's made this lane particularly treacherous. And as you said, the short wheelbase Dodge with all that power can really be a handful. At half track, Ekman, a little bit of a lead, but the second half of this quarter mile is all Jeffreyon as the big Dodge power moves around that brand new and very slippery Pontiac Trans Am of Ekman's to take the victory by this much. Steve is with the winner.
Little sideways in high gear, Scott?
It sure was a little bit sideways in high gear, but you know, these guys from Wayne County, they gave me an excellent race car in the first part of the racetrack. It's just the other end of the racetrack might have been a little bit of oil or something out there.
Still a real decent number, though, 7:15.
That's what we've been looking for all weekend, and my guys, as usual, you know, they find it at the right time. They find it on Sunday.
So Scott Jeffrey moves on as the second pair of pro stockers have completed their burnouts. And Steve, like the first pair, a little bit of disappointment on the part of these two guys during this season as well.
Well, you know, everyone is disappointed unless their name is Johnson. Jim Yates didn't win a race this year. Still hasn't won his first NHRA national event out of Virginia, but boy, is he competitive. Larry Morgan, well, they didn't skunk him entirely. He won the second Topeka race just a month ago with his Oldsmobile out of Newark, Ohio. And that's another one of those zoomy Trans Ams on the right-hand side of your screen in the far lane. That is Jim Yates. RPM's up to about 7,500. Sidestep the clutch. And Morgan very, very loose in the first 100 feet. That may cost him. He tries to charge on the other end, and it is not enough. Yates in the Pontiac at 7:19 defeats Morgan 7:22 with the Olds, 190 to 192 miles an hour. When I said if your last name isn't Johnson, of course I'm referring to Warren Johnson and his son Kurt, and here comes Kurt now in the near lane. As a rookie, he's won 3 national events this year.
Oh, he just jumped out of being a crew chief for his dad into the cockpit of one of these Oldsmobiles and has just been excellent. Can't say, though, he doesn't come by it honestly, because his dad, Warren, is both an excellent mechanic and an excellent driver from all the days that they were way up in Duluth, Minnesota, and came down to Georgia and have been just powerful ever since.
This is a guy I really like to talk to, but usually it's in the hotel lobby. We get to do it at the end of the racetrack. A nice 19.
It's 7:19? Well, that's great. That's a real step up today.
He raced a tough guy.
Well, you know, Larry, you know, he's been running so good, we just have to give it our best shot. And we give it a little tune-up for that run, and Richard Maskins and the crew really did a good job, and we got us flying this time.
In the Final Four.
Oh, boy, it feels good. It feels really good.
I got to be proud of my old family pal there, Jim Yates, doing a good job, but now let's go down to the starting line where this man, Kurt Johnson, will go against Lewis Warden.
Kurt is odds-on favorite for Rookie of the Year in the pro categories. Qualified number 2 with a 7:12. Only his dad was quicker. Beat Bruce Allen around number 1. Lewis Warden out of Festus, Missouri. He is a driving son of a gun. He cuts nobody any slack on the starting line. If they can get just a little more performance out of this car in 94, we're going to see them in final rounds. I mean, this guy can get the job done. On the right-hand side of your screen, here's Kurt Johnson in the near lane. And it's Warden away first. Johnson alongside, and Johnson noses Warden out with a 7:17 at 192 miles an hour. Warden with a competitive 7:20 at 190.
I'll tell you what, the Johnson family knows how to tune Oldsmobiles. That I'll guarantee you. They just have an edge. As you said, it was Warden with a wink on the starting line, better reaction time, but you know that Kurt Johnson and his dad just hold back a little bit on the line because they have all that surplus horsepower, and here it comes into play at about 3/4 track. Warden hanging in there really well, but Kurt Johnson in a big Oldsmobile power, driving well, goes on to victory. Let's go to Steve with the winner.
Well, Kurt, the Final Four in pro stock is going to be a war. Everybody's in the teens. You at a 17.
17. She slowed down just a little bit. We ran 14 the run before. It's getting loose down track. I'm going to have to put some spoiler in this thing and see if we can keep up with the...
Everybody is saying the same thing as loose down track.
Yeah, we lost lane choice there. I think Scott ran a 15. It'll be a good race from here on in. Look for us in the final.
Kurt Johnson doesn't have a full-time sponsor, so he picks him up wherever he can. Broguer's Dairy here locally on the Oldsmobile of Kurt Johnson. It was Texas Harley in Dallas.
Hey, you get the money where you can find it. Believe me, this is a tough sport and an expensive one as well. As we get ready for his father, Warren Johnson already clinched the Winston Championship, clinched it very early in the season. Incredible, Steve, that you think about this guy who fought so long against Bob Glidden to win his first championship, and now, ironically, Bob didn't even qualify for this race.
And you were just looking at Dave Butner, crew chief for Mark Fowing, saying, I don't know, you're the driver of the starting line. Won the second race of the year and was blanked the rest of the season. Warren Johnson, well, Brock said it all. I mean, it's the dream season. The guy who moved from Duluth, Minnesota to Duluth, Georgia. Pretty strange in itself. There is Butner again. They're trying to get Powick lined up exactly where he needs to be. You see, Warren Johnson at the last second switched over into the far lane. That was his prerogative. And I think he did that after watching his son, Kurt. All right, so here we go. 5-speed transmissions, 500 cubic inches, racing gasoline, 2,350 pounds with the driver. Powick trying to hang in there, but he's falling back to Warren Johnson. Johnson, a back-breaking 7:11 at 195 miles an hour to Powick at 7:22, 191. So, Brock, that sets up the pairings for Pro Stock in the Final Four.
And this is so often the case this season, we got a couple of Johnsons in it. Warren, he'll go against Jim Yates. Warren with that 7:11 obviously has lane choice. The other pair, Scott Jeffrion in the Wayne County Dodge, goes against Kid Kurt. But Scott has lane choice in this pair, so it's going to be an interesting one.
You apparently liked what you saw from Kurt's run because you changed lanes into the tracks he laid down.
Well, we looked at what was out there. Kurt made one run. We switched lanes right behind him. We felt that maybe the lane we chose was going to be just a little bit better.
A lot of drivers saying it's a little loose on the top end.
It's loose starting about 300 feet out. In fact, we were lucky to get by that round. It started moving around and bobbled the carburetor just enough. It started missing in the third and fourth gear, and I was just lucky to get around, Mark.
Yeah, it missed its way to a 7-11.
Meanwhile, back in the pits, that's Al Hoffman's wife, Helen, packing the chute. He's going to go against Cruz Pedregon in the Final Four. All that and more coming up from Pomona, California. Stick with us. It's a beautiful, cool afternoon in Pomona, California, where we see Rance McDaniel beginning his burnout. He's going to face Kenny Bernstein in the Top Fuel semifinal. Bernstein there getting ready to do his burnout. He will have lane choice of 481 versus Rance McDaniel's 488. McDaniel definitely upset-minded. Bernstein running very well here today. Going to be an interesting race. But first, let's go to Steve Evans in the pits.
After that rather disappointing 5:33 in round 2, Jim Epler and crew, Mike Klober there, the crew chief, had hoped to spend their valuable pit time fine-tuning the fuel system and the clutch to help it get better traction in that right lane. Instead, all of their efforts are going into an engine change. What you just saw is a brand new, never started engine. Here's the bad one. I say bad because on the crankshaft underneath there are some black bearings. Oil starvation. You don't dare run an engine like this. It can be dangerous. This team may have their back against the wall a bit.
It's amazing, I'll tell you what, that any time you run up one of these race cars that the engines even stay together. When you imagine that 5,000 horsepower is being pumped out of these things that were originally developed 20 years ago, they're about 150 horsepower.
That's right. You get the 5-second or a quarter-mile guarantee, whichever comes first. Okay, Rance McDaniel, Kenny Bernstein. Bernstein over the year has some of the best reaction times. No surprise there. Rance McDaniel, quite honestly, middle of the pack reaction times, to be kind about it. So let's see what happens here. The man running on his own nickel out of Fresno, California against Budweiser King. They leave together. You know, Bernstein pulled ahead, then the motor started to go away, and McDaniel came around him, almost identical elapsed time. 4.89 seconds for both of them. 295 for McDaniel. Bernstein slowing to a 281 as the engine started to dissolve.
This is an unbelievable drag race. McDaniel has him off the line, but only by about 0.03 of a second, almost an even start there. But for most of this race, it looks like Kenny Bernstein is on his way to a close but decisive victory. Here you see him in the far lane. Looks like he's got about a half a car length. But here goes the motor, and McDaniel, in the last 2 or 3 feet, wins this race.
That has to be the second race in a row, Rance. You couldn't be sure you had even won.
You're right. It was just perfect again, once again.
Tell me how it felt. You left first.
And then I saw red on my left-hand side, and then we caught him, and it was great. I'm a little bit winded. My boys are perfect once again.
Both cars ran 489.
Okay, more Top Fuel action coming up, but first, a quick word about NHRA Now, presented by Castrol GTX. It's a 24-hour drag racing information line with the latest info on your favorite drivers and events. Call 1-900-468-NHRA. Under 18, ask your parents. Charges will appear on your phone bill.
All right. Corey McClenathan and Jimmy Nix, two of the best running cars on the property today. Corey Mack with top speed and low ET. Jimmy Nix with the second best elapsed time today at 4.80 seconds. Jimmy Nix, as you said, Brock, out of Oklahoma City. Raced top gas cars in the 60s, top fuel cars later on in the 60s. Took a long time off. And who could forget a couple of years ago when he flew over here so badly, burning his hands, only to return. Corey Mack, we've told the story. He and Jimmy Brock will split up at sundown tonight. They want to split up, sharing that trophy. Oh, yeah. A beauty. Jimmy Nix by inches, and he did it on a whole shot. A 488 beats a 486. Jimmy Nix moved first. Corey McClenathan becomes the world's fastest loser at 302 miles an hour.
Yet another unbelievable Top Fuel drag race here. We thought the Rance McDaniel-Bernstein race was a wild one. Look at this. As you said, reaction time wins it for Jimmy Nix as the two cars come down this quarter mile nose to nose. Watch this finish. Thank goodness for the electronic clocks. Otherwise, we'd still be arguing over who was going to go into the Top Fuel final, whether it would be McDaniel or McClenathan. As it is, McDaniel will face Jimmy Nix, and Jimmy will have lane choice. And now, let's go to that surprising winner.
I don't believe you did that to me.
Corey Mack is over here throttling Jimmy Nix. He can't believe he hole shot at him. Jimmy, you did.
That is hard to believe. I really don't hardly believe it.
Your 488 beat his 486, and Corey, you ran 302 and lost.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I mean, you live and die by the light, but I'll tell you, it couldn't happen to a better guy.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
For the first time in contemporary history, Jimmy Nix is going to the final round.
And it's going to be a good one with a couple of real upset-minded guys in Top Fuel. Not so with this band. Warren Johnson faces Jim Yates in the Pro Stock semifinal. There he is working on his own motor, and I'll guarantee you everybody views him as a favorite. We're back at Pomona in the Pro Stock pits.
That's the engine of Kurt Johnson that he hopes will get him through the Final Four and maybe a shot at his pop one more time this season. You know, before we get back to the action, though, let me take just a moment to invite you to become a member of a very special organization, the National Hot Rod Association. For $52 a year, you get 48 issues of National Dragster magazine, a patch, a pen, a rule book, and a whole lot of other stuff. And if you order by calling the number on your screen, you'll get a free copy of Diamond P's home video, Drag Racing 92. So make that call. Join the world's largest motorsport sanctioning body, NHRA. And here's one of the reasons NHRA is so darn popular. Nitro funny cars, including the McDonald's car of Cruise Pentagon, Oldsmobile body machine, 5,000 horsepower. There's not a weak dog in the Final Four, Brock.
Oh, absolutely not. As that car, though, this year will create its number one, or probably number three, I suppose, next year. Still a very, very good standing. And Al Hoffman, well, he and Tommy Anderson, his crew chief, a great guy. They came into 1993 looking for the championship. They're not going to get it, but they've also had an excellent season in increasing competition in funny cars.
That's right. Al Hoffman is going to go to work right after this race, building 3 new cars for next year under the Western Auto banner. McDonald's will be back with Cruise Pentagon. And Pentagon right now, he needs to keep winning here to have a chance, an outside chance, at picking up the number 2 spot. And it's a difference between $40,000 and $25,000 between second and third.
We've got to set low ET and win the race.
Well, that's gone. It'll be Al Hoffman going to the final round. It'll be Chuck Etchells finishing second in the points. And Cruz has got to be sick. After losing traction, he watches Hoffman hobble to a 568 at only 185 miles an hour. Tom Anderson, What do you think about that?
Not exactly what you expected there.
No, but I tell you what, that was a real heads-up driving job by Hoffman because the car was fine, but it spun the tire down there and tried to go across the center line, and he could see that Cruz was not with him, so he shut it off to save the race. If he had crossed the center line, we'd have been out of here.
And to think you guys were worried about lane choice.
I guess it didn't matter.
Well, it's going to matter, Tom, because you're probably going to be back in that lane in the funny car final. Here's another look at that race, which was a good one for maybe the first 30 feet. That's until Cruz goes up in smoke right there. Al Hoffman goes on to the win and into the finals.
One strange drag race.
I don't know why, I don't know how, but we're here. Lost the blower belt. I see that. It shut off. I seen Cruz, and I didn't see him, and we won it. That's all that counts. I want to say thanks to my whole crew. Brian McDermott, Andy Nearing, Jeremy Lindsay, especially my wife, Helen, and one of the best crew chiefs in the business, Tom Anderson. Mallory, Urson, you guys are great. We'll be there next year.
And he'll be back next round.
But who will he face? That's the big question. We're going to answer that very, very quickly. That Jim Epler run very well here all day long. And, of course, what more should we say? You're riding with John Force, and he runs well any place he races.
And who did I spot riding in his van? Actress Crystal Bernard, the star of the TV series Wings. Krista, you made friends with John Force in the Toyota Celebrity Racing. How do you like the drags?
Oh man, this was unbelievable. It's the first drag race I've been to. The ground shook. The things are blowing up around me. But I looked at this car on the inside. This is like NASA, you know, technology. It's unbelievable. I mean, these guys, they're so smart. They really know what they're doing. By the way, John put me out of the Toyota race. I just want to point that out. Thank you.
Glad to have you. How brave is John Force? Also riding in the van is his wife. That's a brave man. The heck with fire. That's courage. All right, here is John Force up against Epler. Epler had to change engines between rounds as Force did the previous round. Force made it work, and Epler.
We're going to find out right now.
John loses traction. Look at Epler disappear on the horizon. Epler, and Epler musters a 5:13. You talk about a comeback. How about the speed? 297 miles an hour, knocking on the door of yet another 300. And I don't think John Force's crew has any idea why that car smoked the tires.
Well, I'm sure they're puzzled by it because Austin Carl and Bernie Federle and Force and all the rest of the guys, they picked that lane. So they surely set the clutch up for it. But it was a major miscalculation because he immediately places the tires, takes him out of the show. As he watches in frustration, Epler make a great pass at a 5:13, which puts him into the finals against Al Hoffman and decisively with lane choice. Let's go to Steve with him.
Boy, the engine change didn't hurt you a bit. 5:13.
5:13, I tell you, the credit goes to the crew. They did a heck of a job. Not used to this mid-round smash, but well, I'd like to thank Rug Dr. Hughes Oldsmobile for this opportunity. We're doing, I think we're going to make it next round.
Maybe 300 miles an hour. You just ran 297.
297, the air's going to get better. I think 300 may come.
Oh boy, stick around. Back at the Winston Finals, where a couple of the young Lions in Pro Stock competition get ready to go in the Pro Stock semifinal. That is Kirk Johnson and Scott Jeffrey on completing their burnouts. But before we see that race, let's go down to Steve and John Force.
Well, John, was it just a little too guerrilla, as you might say?
Pretty stout, but that's what the boys are paid to do, and we just wanted to keep putting those numbers on the board. But hey, somebody else won. We got the championship, and Castrol O's. Jolly Rancher, everybody's happy. Comeback tour was a success, and no 12th, but we'll take 11.
See you at the Champions Banquet.
You sure will see him back on the trail again next year to defend that championship. I'll guarantee you that. All right, in the near lane, that's Scott Jeffrey on board the Mopar Dodge. And in the far lane going against him is Kurt Johnson of the Johnson dynasty, Steve.
And these two have battled for that second and third spot in the Winston standings. A good lead for Scott, a slightly better lead for his opponent. And there you see, coming around you and Scott Jeffrey on, is Kurt Johnson at a great 7:14, 193 miles an hour. Scott Jeffrey on in the Dodge Daytona at 7:17, 192 miles an hour. So Jeffrey on is out of here.
Good pass by both drivers, but Johnson has the reaction time of 4:37 to a 4:50. That gives him an instant advantage, which he maintains throughout the entire quarter mile. Steve said a 7:14 to a 7:17. Not bad at all for the loser, but still, it marks the end of the year for Scott Jeffrion as Kurt Johnson has himself one more race. Here you see the difference in the victory margin. There is Johnson almost a full car length, which is a bunch in this kind of competition. Let's go to Steve.
Drag race.
Tell me about it.
Actually, it was like a buck and bronco down there, but it's been quite a rivalry all year long. Me and Scott for second place in the Winston points, and you come down here at the World Finals, and it was a real drag race, let me tell you.
You had the starting line advantage in a 7:14.
7:14. We picked up a little bit. Probably have to run that GM Performance Parts car in the final, but I think tomorrow Christopher Olds will have what it's got to take.
Well, Steve, it's going to be interesting because it's a possibility we're going to see Johnson versus Johnson for the 6th time this season in the finals. But on the other hand, who would have predicted that Jimmy Nix and Rance McDaniel would be in the Top Fuel final?
Oh, yeah, and how about Jim Yates? Thrilled to be in the Final Four. That is the Pontiac Trans Am, the left-hand side of your screen, or in the near lane. A great start for Yates. Warren Johnson doing his imitation of Rip Van Winkle up the starting line, but it does not matter. Yet another lucky 7-11. 194 miles an hour. It will be the Band-Aid final. Johnson & Johnson. 7:22 loses it for Yates at 190.
But look at the reaction time. Almost a perfect light of 4:17. Jim Yates cuts it as close as he can, uses as much power as he has available. A very good pass on the part of the Virginia driver. But that monster power underneath the hood of the Oldsmobile, it just gives Warren Johnson that unbelievable flexibility. He's got that margin that he just drives around Yates on his way to victory with a very impressive 7-11. So it will be Kurt versus Warren once again in the Pro Stock final. As I said before, that will mark the 6th time this father-son team has gone together in the finals. But this time it's Warren 3, Kurt 2. So Kurt's up to tie it going into this race.
Ooh, we came a little close to giving that one away.
Yeah, Buster had one of his proverbial quick light deals over there, and Jim just went in there and let the clutch out, and Buster was in sync with him. So it's one of those deals we were able to outrun the Pontiac. That's all that matters.
Outrunning with a 7-11. That's a lucky number.
Yeah, all we need is another one of those for the final.
Against his own son, Kurt. Could be a good one.
All right, Steve, this is Jim Epler's crew going at it in the funny car pit. They will face Al Hoffman in the final. That's coming up here at Pomona. Stick with us.
Well, it's a proud day for the Johnson family here at the LA County Fairplex in Pomona, California. Warren Johnson, his 30-year-old son, Kurt Johnson, they make up the Pro Stock final round. Warren has the lane choice, a 7-11. In fact, he's run that twice to Kurt's 7-14. But as always, the battle here will be for reaction time. They care more about that when they race each other than the elapsed time. It's just a badge of honor, bragging rights around the shop.
Well, Dad is right on 50 years old, and it's interesting to remind you that we talk about Eddie Hill, who's the Top Fuel champion, Force is the funny car champion, and Warren Johnson. Average age right around 50 years. This is not a kid's sport. This is a sport that requires enormous maturity, and the skill that comes at the starting line does come with lots of racing, no question about that.
And you know, Kurt has commented, it doesn't matter who my dad races all day long, he'll be quickest against me. Because he's just motivated. He didn't want to hear about it. And the kid will rub it in, especially that reaction time thing. So let's watch. Boy, this place is quiet. Everyone on their feet watching the two Oldsmobiles from Duluth, Georgia. The last Pro Stock race of 1993. Kurt off the mark first by 200ths. But the top end, he's still 200ths away from his dad. Warren Johnson, another 7-11 at 194 to a 7:15, 193. For Warren, it's back to the dyno to get ready for 94. For Kurt, he's going to Hawaii, the island of Kauai, for 10 days. Let's go to Bob.
This is a great way to end the season, Greg. Just flat out ran that punk kid.
That's right. Finally taught him a lesson. He was getting pretty cocky, you know. It's tough beating your own stuff. I'm telling you, Moore made me a promise before the race. He said, if we win this race, I'm sending the whole crew to Hawaii. Get ready, Don Hope. Here we come.
Well, before you leave, let's take one more look at that race. And here it is, the two white Oldsmobiles out of the Johnson stable. And it is the kid, as Steve said, off the line about 200ths ahead of his father, but it's the big power, that tuning genius and driving genius of Warren Johnson, who pulls it out at the end. Not by much. 194 miles an hour to 193 for the Sun, and there is the margin of victory.
Well, unlike Eddie Hill and John Force, Warren, you have finished with a flourish. Another lucky 7-11.
Oh, 7 come 11, 3 times in a row. I'll tell you, we were rolling along today. This car was working just perfectly. GM Performance Parts, Oldsmobile, the crew is what did this thing today. You know, obviously witnessed by 3 7-11s in a row. They're the ones that did this thing. All I had to do was ride.
And it's fun when your closest competition is your own son, and 94 should be fun as well.
Yeah, the old man ain't dead yet, is he?
Absolutely not.
Nor are the Oldsmobiles. Look at this. Out of the top 5 cars in Pro Stock, 4 of them are Oldsmobiles. Only Scott Jeffrey on number 3, and the Dodge breaks into that exclusive category. Rounding out the top 10, Bob Gooden on board a Ford, Bruce Allen Chevrolet, Ricky Smith, Jerry Ekman, and David Rampy. First year in Pro Stock, he does well to finish in the 10th spot. Next up, the funny cars. That is the crew, Jim Epler. They're ready to go on the starting line. They'll go against Al Hoffman right after this.
Welcome back to the NHRA Winston Finals. Darkness is falling here at the LA County Fairplex. They have brought in special lights, and there's a problem there for Al Hoffman's funny car here in the final round. They cannot get the car to back up. There's a special reverser transmission starter, Buster Couch, watching intently to make sure he does not inconvenience his competition, Jim Epler. Epler backing up from his burnout, doing his own thing. About now, he can see that Hoffman is in trouble. And at this point, Jim Epler knows that he has won the Winston Finals. Al Hoffman idles the car down the racetrack, will make the turn off to the left, and Epler will make a solo. Brackets, I've got a feeling, though, the final funny car run of the year, a big crowd here in Pomona under the lights. Epler will stand on the gas.
Oh, no question about it. Or on the nitro, as the case might be, because they're loaded up on this one. Let's not forget that Epler's only NHRA victory came here in the 92 Winter Nationals. So he's got a point to prove. He does not want to back into this one. So as it's dark, you're going to see a bunch of flame and fire out of that race car as he makes this pass. Buster Couch moving out of the way, and this will be a single. He already has the title in hand.
He does indeed. Why Mike Klober looked at his watch just then, I have no idea. Maybe he's on overtime now. Look at the glorious flames. Oh, and Jim Epler stuns the crowd. You can hear him, his own crew. Stares in amazement at a 5'10", 293 miles an hour. Oh, what a moment. Let's go to the starting line. Bob Fry is part of that bedlam.
Oh, my, this team is really tickled to death. A 290-mile-an-hour shot, 5'10". Great weekend, Mikey.
It's been a great weekend. I want to say hi to my wife. Dan, I'll be home tomorrow. Thanks. Jim's done a great job driving the car. Got to thank Bob Brandt. He's going to be with us next year. We started this race. That's big news for us. It's really going to help round out our team. All the Rug Doctor people are here this weekend. It's been a really good weekend. I got to thank my crew, Steve Hillier, Tracy Laird, Richie Jarvis, Craig Collins. Everybody really had to bust their butt this weekend to help get this car back into Winter Circle where it belongs.
Great job, Mikey. And let's go to the far end of the racetrack and Steve.
You know, Jim, I don't care how you won it. After all the fires, after all the trouble, no one deserved to end the season with a victory more than you.
Boy, you're not kidding. They talk about the highs and lows of drag racing, and I have experienced them this year. I really got to thank all my crew, and especially Kent Benson with the Rug Doctor. Really believed in me through this ordeal.
I'll give you a Halloween treat. How about a 5'10" to close it out?
5'10", that's great. I'd say best crew in drag racing. Really looking forward to next year.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay, the final point standings. Force Comeback Tour, 18,000 points, 6,000 over Chuck Etchels in second. Pedregon, Hoffman, and Hoover round out the top 5. Kenji Okazaki in his first full season finishes 6th. Epler 7th, Minio, Bolger, and Whit Bazemore through a lot of problems over the season. finishes in 10th spot.
I had an NHRA official quip just a few moments ago that in the Top Fuel final, they didn't check their competition driver's license. They checked their AARP cards. Actually, Rance McDaniel and Jimmy Nix a little ways away from retirement. McDaniel 53 in the far lane. Nix is 55. The last time Jimmy Nix was in a final was the 1966 Spring Nationals at Bristol, Tennessee. He won here, the Winter Nationals in 65, in a gasoline-burning car when that class existed. You know, Don the Snake Prudhomme, in a press conference here Thursday, announced that 1994 would be the Snake's final strike. He would retire at the end of next season. He's only 51. Running out to the Jimmy Nix car, a concerned crew apparently is dribbling a little fuel, and that's not unusual out of the overflow of the tank. They can wipe it up, plus it will evaporate very, very quickly. So Nix, hopefully that doesn't rattle him. He admits the starting line is his weak area.
Well, Rance McDaniel has a lane choice, but only by just a wink, an 88 to an 89. So that is really no difference, although it's possible that that lane that Rance has chosen may be a little bit better. We're going to find out in just a second.
The final two cars of what has been a delightful, exciting, and competitive 1993. And two surprise finalists, Rance McDaniel, Jimmy Nix. Let's listen, let's watch. What a way to end the year. 487 wins it for Rance McDaniel, the volunteer crew from Fresno, California. 295 miles an hour. Jimmy Nix only gave up 200s on the starting line. A great lead for both drivers, a .44 to a .46. But Nix just didn't quite have the muscle in the middle of the racetrack. The fans, well, it's a Kodak moment, folks, anytime these cars run at night.
There you see the cars at half track, pretty well dead even. But at this point, Rance McDaniel starts to pull it out a little bit, and by the end of it, it's over a car length for the Fresno, California veteran. Great job. Let's go to Steve with the winner.
Rance McDaniel, they're partying in Fresno tonight.
You betcha they're partying in Fresno. We're going to come back and party with them, too.
486 to wrap it up. Tell us about the race.
It was a good race. I saw Jimmy. It was a good race. Another good, close race. We've had them all day. That's for the fans.
Well, you've traveled the whole country. You've fought the hard fight. You deserve the spoils. Congratulations.
Thanks so much. We appreciate it. Thanks, Dan Olson, Mark Conyers, whole crew, the greatest there is.
Okay, Eddie Hill, we know about him. He won it, even though he went out in the first round here. Scott Coletta, great job for him. Bernstein, Mike Dunn, and Rance McDaniel, your winner here in fifth spot. Corey, he's moving on to McDonald's. He's in the sixth spot. Amato falls down to seventh. Ed McCullough, a disappointing season for a great driver. Doug Herbert and Tommy Johnson Jr. round out the top 10. So do our winners. Rance McDaniel and Jim Epler, great way to end their season. Warren Johnson, just another trip to the bank. For Bob Fry and Steve Evans, I'm Brock Yates. Thanks for joining us.
The executive producer for American Sports Cavalcade is George E. Orgera. The supervising producer is Tom Gee. Produced and directed by Mark Kuchin. Promotional consideration provided for and a fee paid by this special offer from Diamond P.
Get geared up for Christmas with great racing videos from Diamond P. Like this perfect stocking stuffer for your drag racing fan. Call 1-800-826-8080 for the video they've been asking for. Top Fuel sensations. No talk, no music, no replays. Just the awesome sights of blinding speed and the thundering sounds of 5,000 horsepower engines on record-setting runs. And now smell the power with the drag strip scratch and sniff card included in every video for a full-bore sensory experience. If you can't be at the track, this is the next best thing. To order with credit card, call 1-800-826-8080 or send check or money order for $16.95 plus $4 shipping and handling to the address on your screen. That's 1-800-826-8080. Crank it up for Christmas with Diamond B.
The American Sports Cavalcade is a presentation of Diamond P Sports.